Let me shift gears a little bit, Mark, and ask you about economic inequality and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her agenda. What do you think of that, and why do you think people find it so appealing?
AOC. I love AOC, right? I don't always agree with her, but I think she's learned the lesson of social media where you get long and you get loud and you get people's attention, and then you deal with substance after that.
But what do you think when she says that the idea that we have billionaires in our society is immoral?
I mean, it makes for great headline porn. I mean, she started a business. Bernie Sanders has a book business. You know, Elizabeth Warren buys and sells houses, or did, right? If they would have had the level of success that I and others have had, I don't think they'd be complaining as much. But that doesn't mean that there's not an income inequality problem. There is. And it's something we have to deal with. I tell, you know, other business people that, you know, the greatest cost to business is social disruption. If people are rebelling and burning things and aren't satisfied with their lives and they're incented to do horrific things, that's the greatest cost of business, and that costs us more. Now the question becomes, how do you deal with
address it? Yeah.
Right. So I'm not a fan of trickle-down economics, right? Where I don't think that works. I don't think it has worked. Where, you know, the richer people get, the more they make available to others. Hasn't worked. I'm also not a fan of trickle-down taxation, right? The concept that just tax, you know, those who have a whole lot more, then all of a sudden it'll find its way to those who need it. Doesn't work, hasn't worked, won't work. It's not that taking more money. I'm okay with paying more taxes. I don't have a problem with that. Where the issue is, how do you make it work?
Yeah.
Right? How do you get it? Now, the reality is, anybody who's working and getting paid by the hour is going to have a challenge when something goes wrong.
Right.
Right? Do you lose a job? Does the dishwasher break? Does somebody get sick? Is it more than your deductible, or if you haven't covered your deductible yet, can you cover your deductible? If you're getting paid by the hour, it's hard to save money. I don't care if it's $10 an hour, $15 or $50 an hour. It's a difficult position. The only way that people really improve their wealth is by buying a house, condo, whatever it may be, owning shares of stock. And so I think that's where you start to change the rules. I think when you have a company like Uber changed, but who was it that was it Pinterest? Where there's multiple shares, like Snap has got multiple classes of stock.
Yeah.
I think you tax them differently. If every share of stock in a company in the public market is not treated the same, then it should be it shouldn't be, I'm trying to think of the right way without stepping on too many toes. If you have an advantage class of stock, it should be treated as normal income when you sell that stock. Right. If everybody's got the same share of class of stock, then you treat it as capital gains. Right. If you've held it for more than a year. I think you also advantage people if you have a company where all employees are offered stock, you give them other tax advantages. Because then, to AOC's point, you're lifting from the bottom up. Trickle down is not going to work, but if you create opportunities where people all have to share in stock, then the disparity is going to decline because everybody's going to go up when things happen. Like when we sold broadcast.com, we created 300 millionaires because 300 out of 330 people had vested their stock. Right. So when you work from the bottom up like that, people have a chance to increase the value of their wealth. If somebody's below a certain level of income and they're able to buy a home and you give them more tax advantage, you don't take away their deductions because they're in California or New York. When they have a lower income. Now they did some things to offset, but still, you want people to be able to accumulate assets that grow in value, that appreciate. That's how you get people so that their life becomes better.
Okay, let me ask you about America. I mean, people are bitching about America. Is there something wrong with this country, or is it just the usual stuff? I mean,
I think it's the usual stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, now everybody's got a platform, so it's a lot easier to bitch. I call it headline porn. You're only going to get attention. The more dramatic you are, the better chance you have of getting attention. And that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, there used to be gatekeepers to media. Now there's not. And if you're loud enough and either crass enough, or maybe it's a great idea and people get behind it enough, then you're going to be heard. It doesn't make us bad. It's just the game has changed.
I mean, there are problems like our healthcare system, right? How would you fix that? And mass shootings, there's shootings.
Well, I think first, you know, there's a book I read in high school that I ended up buying a copy of. It's called Why Men Rebel. And basically what he said was when your expectations for your life going forward are increasing, but the reality is diverging from that, and so what you thought would happen with your life and where you are gets further and further apart, then people do things that they otherwise wouldn't do. Whether it's a mass shooting, whether it's, you know, who knows what, cheating, whatever it may be.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think taking care of income inequality and lifting people up from the bottom and creating more opportunities and giving them tax advantages, maybe it's an earned income credit, whatever it may be, then I think you'll see fewer of those events. You know, other people will say it's a mental health issue. I don't think we've had all those same type of issues, you know, for hundreds of years in this country. I think it's more about when people really get disappointed and they have nothing to lose, they'll do things that people with nothing to lose will do.
Is it guns a problem as well?
Yeah, I would do guns completely differently. You were listening to some of my last interviews, weren't you?
Yeah.
I would do guns completely differently. I would go to change the Second Amendment in ways that people probably wouldn't expect. You know, it's not easy to change an amendment, but what I would do is change the Second Amendment so it said, 1, every American citizen has the right to own a gun, period, end of story, written in the amendment. 2, the federal government will never be allowed to ever confiscate that gun from an individual, period, end of story. 3, states have the right to manage the ownership, the purchase and ownership and management of guns owned and held within their borders. So that if you live in a state like Texas, if the law in Texas is open carry, so be it. If you live in Pennsylvania where they're more stringent and they don't want you to be able to have a gun other than in your own premise or, you know, under lock and key or, you know, have to do a background check, then that's up to them to decide. And so if, you know, we're trying to take a Second Amendment that has been analyzed up and down and backwards and forwards and it's created its own set of problems, you know, let's update it.